Shades of Benga Online presents highlights from the story of Kenya's popular music in the 70-year period between the end of the Second World War and 2016. The series draws its inspiration from the definitive book Shades of Benga by Ketable Music.
Good evening and welcome to Shades of Benga Online. In this episode, we discuss Rumba in Nairobi. And to play us in is Orchestra Mangelepa with Marie Claire of Baba Gaston. I'm your host, Topi Liambila.
Ngai mama nakamati nzela na keina ikasi mosala yango eyebana kakutani na mwasi moko motema ebandi kolenga-lenga shu lokola nazali tata ya bana namekaki kobosana ye lokola namemaki valize ebongaki nakende pa ya tata lokola namemaki valize mpona boyaki desizio na ye papa ayambaki nga na bolamu mwana na ngai ye mwana na ngai ye aye Hapana vile di itakuwa kitu bure di. Nakendeki epai ya Marie Claire tobalana mwamini Marie Claire nasengi mariage Oyebi mokolo wana mokandanga natindaki nasemeki na ngai mwamini Marie Claire natindeli yo mbote na lieva ozali mwana likasi epai na yo mpe batika biso tovanda sopi vraimen ya bolingo tosalaki na yo na suta semeki na sasi ye batindeli yo mbote masko na jaki batindeli yo mbote na Baba Gaston semeke na sazi ye batindeli yo mbote Brazose na oki Marie Clara Clara. Hussa! Remonte! Chondo! Marie Clara. Yeah, Marie Clara. Yeah, Marie Clara. Yeah, Marie Clara. Thank you.
That was Marie Clara by Baba Gaston, performed by Orchestra Mangelepa. Okay, to discuss Shades of Benga, Rumba in Nairobi. We have on the panel today a very interesting panel, and I believe that you viewers will enjoy yourselves. In my immediate left is Charles Mudhemba, is a musician of old repute. Was played, with many bands, Trippers, Ruddy, Blue Stars, and he's here to give us something about what it felt like those days, and probably give us an outlook on what it is today. And next to him, of course, is Tabu Osusa, who is the executive director of Equitable Music and also the co-author of Shades of Benga, the book. And he's our panelist here also to give us his experience, what he knows about Rumba in Nairobi City. And at my very far end is Dr. Tom Odhiambo of the University of Nairobi. Today, he is coming in as a Rumba enthusiast, somebody who knows about the music. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like Tabu Osusa to kick us off on this show. And we are looking at Rumba in the city. But how did Rumba come in the city? How it is? Because we are talking about an era, like the 70s era, which is normally referred to as the golden era of music and fashion and everything. But now we're talking about Rumba. How did the Rumba music build up in Nairobi City?
Thank you, Topi. The 1970s was definitely the golden era of Kenya's music. And I'm talking in terms of production and performances, especially with the Rumba music, and which was boosted by the arrival of Congolese musicians from Zaire. By then it was Zaire, now it's known as DRC. So there are so many bands that arrived in Nairobi via Uganda. Some came through Tanzania and settled here.
So how early was that, Dr. I would like you to jump in here. Because we are talking about, the arrival of the bands.
Yes.
So we had a stage in Nairobi,
Yes.
which also involved Rumba. Is that,
Yes.
am I correct to say that?
Yes, yes, sir.
So what was the scene like from your point?
Well, to go back to what Tab is saying, I think migration is a very natural instinct. Human beings, they say they are social beings, but people really love to inquire what is behind the fence, you know. And if you discover what's behind the fence, again, there is an instinct to inquire what is next. So I think we can go into what were the circumstances. The 70s, yes, it was a wonderful time in Kenya, in many parts of Africa, but probably not so much of a wonderful time in the Congo. In many parts of Africa, there are coups, there was economic turmoil because globally, an economy that was reliant, an African economy that was reliant on raw exports, would suffer exchange rates issues, and that had, the economics had an effect on the politics. And the politics had an effect on social life. And men would naturally then try to go out and seek a livelihood. So we are talking about these musicians arriving here in a way as one way of seeking a livelihood. Like Tabu said, they would move into Uganda because Uganda is next to the DRC. They would move into Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania. And the Kenyan shilling was strong. The Kenyan economy was seductive. And life was probably way, way better in this country than very many of the neighboring countries. So there was a natural kind of inclination to kind of move into Nairobi. And Nairobi was the epicenter of art and culture in the region.
And what was the deal? Because many people have opined that musically speaking, the Congo and the western region of Africa was more developed music-wise than Kenya. So you are saying about like that kind of what exactly prompted these guys to move? Because we did not just have the Congolese, we also had the Tanzanian musicians also coming up during that era.
Yes.
So what were they coming? What actually pulled them in?
There's the logic of demand and supply, and the logic of Nairobi, just as the logic of Mombasa. Remember that a lot of Tanzanian bands actually played in Mombasa. They still do, by the way. A lot of Tanzanian bands play in Mombasa. One, because it's nearer, but two, because of cultural sophistication. So Nairobi, as a city, I mean, there is a saying out there, Nairobi is not our home. It's a place for everybody. And when you have a melting pot, the kind of people love new things. There was nobody who could own Nairobi. In West Africa, if we went amongst the Fulani, the Igbo, the Hausa, you went to Congo, there are settlements, there are regions that were settled by kind of a single group with its own cultural production. But Nairobi was fairly sophisticated. You could find a European here, an Arab here, a Goan here. You could find a Luo here, a Luya here. And they may not even have identified themselves as a Luya or a Luo. Honestly speaking, in Karioko, people saw themselves as Nairobians. You understand? And so the idea that the radio could bring a new sound into your house, you really wanted to know that. And it's not like people sleep. There are people who know and think about how you make money. And the only thing you needed was to just bring one band to play, or one guy to arrive in the city here and speak in French, or speak in Lingala, or speak in Kiswahili that is not local, and it creates, kind of has a ripple effect. And the people who actually played in real bands here will tell you that you could be singing in English, and the way you make the song slightly fanciful is to throw in a Kigiriama word or a Kikamba word, and it becomes some kind of fashion.
You own it.
Yes.
Now, Tabu, the Rumba scene, the Nairobi Rumba scene, which is our subject topic tonight, received a big boost in the 70s from visiting bands. Who are these bands, or who are these musicians, and where did they come from?
Yeah, you're right. There were quite a number of musicians who made Nairobi their base. And most of them came from Zaire, or DRC as it is known today. Most of these bands came from eastern Zaire. And they arrived in Nairobi via Tanzania, for the reason that Tanzania is very close to Nairobi anyway. And Tanzania neighbors Zaire. And some of them, while some of them came from Kinshasa via Uganda. But the groups, notable groups that arrived from Zaire were High Fives, Kange Brothers, Baba Gaston, Banangenge, Boma Liwanza, Ea Bantu, Lenoir, Viva Makale, Likinua, Bane Kanga, which was led by Nana Kumu, you remember?
Yes, yeah, I remember.
As among the first ladies who was a band leader. And I think there were quite a number. But,
and Nana Kumu also came from Zaire.
Yes, I know many people
but
think...
many people think, yeah, maybe you could just give us something.
Yeah, many people think that she was Kenyan,
yeah,
by the name Nana Kumu. Specifically, they thought she was a Luo.
Yeah.
She was a Luo, yes, but a Luo from Congo.
From Congo.
They're called the Aluru or Balulu.
Okay.
In fact, remember, after she left Nairobi, she went and rejoined or joined OK Jazz.
So what is it, Taboo, we had in Nairobi that attracted these people? Because with that numbers, those numbers of the musicians who came from the Congo in the 70s, what is it that attracted them to Nairobi?
I think Nairobi at that time had a very good music setup. The infrastructure was just marvelous. We had multinational record labels based in Nairobi. The major one being Phonogram, which later came to be known as Polygram. And they even had a record plant, you know, so that they could make vinyl records and cassettes. The other multinational record label was EMI. And then there was also CBS. But there were also other small ones that were there. Sapra also was another record plant. So it was easier for people to come to Nairobi to record and also have their vinyl records and cassettes made in Kenya.
And of course, on that line also, it's not just Congolese musicians who came here. We had other musicians also coming in from like our neighboring countries.
Yeah, in fact, interestingly, people think that Tanzanian musicians settled here. Actually, they did not. But they always came to record, and then their music was so popular on radio that people thought they lived here. Guys like Morogoro, I mean, they visited here and toured and recorded, but they always went back. The only Tanzanian group that actually settled in Nairobi, if I remember well, is Simba Wanyika. Because they came, I remember, they came from Jamhuri, I think.
Yeah, from Jamhuri Jazz.
Yeah, they came
Jamhuri
and changed
Jazz.
their name to Simba Wanyika. They moved to Mombasa, then back to Nairobi.
How were these bands received? Because like, okay, fine, we talk about the Rumba scene. Can we comfortably say that when the Congolese musicians were coming to Kenya, that they found a music scene? Did we have the Rumba music scene set in Nairobi, or can we say that it's the Congolese musicians who brought the Rumba scene to Nairobi? What's your take on that?
I think, as I said in my previous episode, Nairobi, or Kenyans as a whole, had a Rumba culture, dating way back from World War II, when Fundi Konde came from World War II. And they came with the guitars and started playing more influenced by Afro-Cuban rumba. And then in the 1950s, the earliest Congolese to come was Jabosco Mwenda and Edward Masengo. And they introduced a faster rumba. So when these Congolese musicians were coming in the 1970s, they already found a ready-made kind of atmosphere for them.
So, okay, fine, that was also Jean Bosco Mwenda, those were the initial ones. Then, but the big band, you know, the ones that actually stayed for long, we're looking at something like Baba Gaston.
Yeah, Baba Gaston stayed for long because he had been here earlier, I think, to record in the late 60s, but he came back now in the 70s to settle, to stay. And that's and actually it's Baba Gaston whose offshoot, Manglepa, became like one of the biggest bands in Kenya. So his influence in the Kenya scene was very big.
You have told us, Tabu, that you know, these bands, when they came to Kenya, say Congolese bands, and they were coming to play Rumba, and they also found that actually Rumba, there was a Rumba culture in Nairobi and in Kenya as a whole. Now, when these bands came in, it meant that they were kind of like displacing the bands that were playing rumba and enjoying the audience here. So how was this? What happened with our local musicians who were playing rumba up until the time the Congolese musicians came in?
At first, when the Congolese musicians came, of course, the fans loved them. The Kenyan fans love Congolese music up to date. So when they arrived, the first of them, when the first few arrived in the 1970s, even the local musicians actually liked them because they brought a lot of professionalism in the way of playing. They were flashy, so they even made our local musicians actually up their game. But when the number became big, then the locals felt threatened because they could see that these musicians were really invading their space. So there was a lot of tension. Though the lucky thing with the locals, so they decided to move away from popular clubs. They decided to move to hotels to play grill music. I think that was their answer to the Congolese.
To the Congolese influx or whatever you can call
it.
All right, We take a break as we listen to Ilunga Ilunga by Baba Gaston, performed by orchestra Mangelepa.
Masikini, masikini, utarudi siku gani? Mapendo kizungu zungu tuwe toto mama. Mapendo kizungu zungu toto mama. Mapendo kizungu zungu tuwe toto mama. Utakosa pembe utakula nini? Mapendo kizungu zungu tuwe toto mama. Mapenzi ya shule na boyo. Mapendo kizungu zungu tuwe toto mama. Mama, oh yeah, niko wako, oh yeah, usinyate, oh yeah, waza vrema, mapendo kizungu zungu tuwe, toto mama. Mapendo kizungu zungu tuwe, toto mama. Mapendo kizungu zungu tuwe toto mama. Yoke ilibela otikinga na bana, yote ilibela otikinga na basie. Manga kolelae, Vivian kolelae, Zazia kolelae, Josia kolelae. Yoke yoke imago, yo bendizoto, mulamba bo. libela otiki zazie yoke libela otiki lutulu latia kolera monga kolera ivya kolera zizia kolera donga na lelio so ulamba yeye ulamba yeye ulamba yeye so Ikango marangoma, sakura. Ikango marangoma, yeah yeah. Ikango marangoma, sakura. Ikango marangoma, yeah yeah. Ikango marangoma, sakura. Ikango marangoma, yeah yeah. Ikango marangoma, sakura. Ikango marangoma, hey hey. Otabo susaha, yoka biso na kata ketebul, ositio kitoko. Steve, wapi baleki na yo? Jojo, Oma. Irionale. Ilonga nawe. Ilonga nawe. Mama kende mera kufa. Ilonga. Mama kapinga mera kufa. Ilonga nawe. Ilonga nawe. Wamina baby motema. Wamina baby motema. Kazongona baby motema. Kazongona baby motema. Nimanga tarundi lumba. Niye masiki. Meningona wena. Wamina wena. Ilonga nawe. Ilonga mama kende mira kufa. Ilonga mama kapinga mira kufa. Ilonga
That was Ilunga Ilunga of Baba Gaston, performed by Orchestra Mangelepa. Charlie, the revelers you guys were playing for already had heard about the Congolese music. These people knew that your revelers knew about the music.
What happened later is that these guys came in numbers. And they were actually, when you look deep into them, they were actually hustlers. They were actually trying to find life somewhere. You know, I think they had war in their countries or something like that, so they wanted a place where they could settle. And they come with this Lingala music, Rumba, which was catching up because it's been played over the radios. And then secondly, they have to survive. So they have this like 15, 18-piece band, and they want to play in a club. And most clubs then used to have musicians, session musicians, not recording artists. People who have been paid to play. To entertain for the evenings, to entertain the revelers. Every weekend or every day. Weekend and every day. In fact, most groups used to play every day. There was plenty of work then. And now these guys come in, and they come with that fashion and pride of theirs, and they come with this new music, which is Lingala, that has been kind of catching up in Kenya. And then secondly, they became cheaper.
That's the talk here. The money.
The money.
Money
Yeah.
is, because
These guys
you are paid.
Yeah.
So obviously you're going to share a bit of that cake.
Yeah. Most clubs, I can remember in River Road, used to hire, employ a musician on a monthly pay.
So you're employed.
They were employed.
Okay.
Now, these guys come and they say, okay, fine, we play this, which is a new thing, and even the club owner would want to have something new. So these guys come in, they play, they attract a crowd, and they become cheaper. So you, as a Kenyan musician, hakuna kazi. The drummer, hakuna kazi. And then slowly, that's when people realize, wow, these guys are taking over.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
These guys are a danger.
They're
not just visiting.
They're not visiting.
They're coming to take away our bread.
These guys used to live rent a house and maybe have a room with maybe 5 or 6 people,
And most of them didn't have their families here.
Yeah, they didn't have their families here.
They could live on the cheap. But you had a wife, children.
Kid, and then you have a monthly salary that you're comfortable with. And then all of a sudden now this guy is taking over.
But I remember even what Charlie was saying earlier on, when I was talking earlier, that there was a lot of tension also among the Kenyan musicians, but they appealed to the immigration department to deny more Congolese the work permit.
Didn't some Kenyan bands also then adapt and start to kind of do their quote-unquote false Lingala stuff? I mean, because this is almost natural, right? Weren't there musicians who then decided, we're going to learn this. We're going to learn, it's the show. I mean, this happens today, right? So you're listening to kind of a Luo band play in a club today, and half the music, they're actually tuning it and singing it in Lingala.
Actually, I mean, the Kenyans also, I would say, not really necessarily singing Lingala, but they adapted playing rumba well.
The style,
Groups like Hody Boys were playing very good rumba. Maroon Commandos was playing very good rumba.
Even Air Fiesta did.
Air Fiesta, yes.
Cavallias. They actually played Congolese music very well.
At some point, if you listen to the Maroon Commandos sound, you wouldn't know that these are local Kenyan army boys who originally were singing in Kiswahili. Of course, with adaptation, you would imagine that it actually is a Zairian band. And that was the thing about Nairobi. Nairobi, the tastes of the revelers, the fans, kind of pushed you into those directions that you got to kind of change to keep up with the times. Because Nairobi was a very active city. There's a time in the 70s, 80s, you couldn't drink some whiskey in Dar es Salaam. It was in short supply, either because of foreign exchange or the government didn't think that everybody could import it. So this was a place to come to. I remember Uganda with its political turmoil. This was a place you came to. There were a lot of exiles here as well from all these other places. So naturally, you had to adapt. You had to change your sound.
But you remember also what I'd said, I think, in the earlier episodes, that Kenya had a culture of rumba.
Yeah.
Coming from the Fundikondes after World War II. Yes. So actually adapting to rumba was, to the Congolese type of rumba, which was just a little faster than the Afro-Cuban rumba, was easier for Kenyans. And because they were also singing in Swahili, a language that the locals could understand. And there's always this notion that there's a genre called Lingala. Lingala is just a language. The genre is rumba.
Yes.
So Kenyans actually started playing rumba very well. And even the Congolese who are here, some of them, for them actually to appeal more to the locals, started singing
in local lingo.
Like in Kiswahili.
Now, stepping back a bit. Yeah, we have spoken about, this arrival of these visitors from the Congo and who influenced quite a lot of Nairobi's nightlife. But if we all step back a bit, and now we talk about the fan. You had fans who were coming. Did you lose some? Did you gain some? And say Taboo, for instance, in your position, the fans of those days, maybe when you were still going out, going to the nightclubs. Daktari, you were going to the nightclubs. How did this affect the fan? Or how did the fans meet up with this challenge?
Actually, speaking as someone who was running a band by that time, later on I was running Orchestra Virunga.
Yes.
Kenyan fans love Congolese music, up to date.
Okay.
So the fight was not about the musicians and the fans. It was about the Congolese musicians and the local musicians, because they believed that the Congolese musicians were actually invading their space.
Okay.
I think that was the problem.
Yeah.
You want to think about fans. I think the way one thinks about fans, Kenyan fans of Congolese music of the 70s and 80s, and all the way into 90s, I think you just go out there and look at how many children are called Franco, how many are called Moreno, how many are called Nico, and these were direct borrowing. I mean, Kenyans, of course, have this habit of something new will be adopted into real-life situations. So that's how Kenyan fans appreciate Congolese music. That's how much.
Yeah, and you see, I'd just like to add, because I remember like in the 70s, in fact, like my friends and myself credit ourselves actually to popularizing Super Mazembe. Why? In the showgrounds, those days, most of our bands played in the showgrounds, and we had Maroon Commandos were big, and Scarlets, and Hody Boys, Namis, the clubs and the DJs as well. But when it came to it was the Kakamega show. And Mazembe, the first night, nobody came. But then we as schoolboys, we found this is a free place because people were queuing to go to the Maroon Commandos. And here there was no queue. We did not have the money to pay. So we got into this and we enjoyed the music. We actually went out to tell people this band is better than even the Maroon Commandos we were going to. The fans, this music, it appealed to the fans. And that's what the fans wanted to hear, because what we are saying that, on radio, it was there. So we knew it. Dr. You knew wherever you are, in your school days, you knew, no, that music, you'd hear it. So these guys are coming here. To be excitement.
It'd be excitement, yeah.
So how did you deal? How did the musicians deal with this? How did you manage? Were you phased out? Because people get the feeling that probably with the Congolese influx, our local bands disappeared. I think, Tabu, you would be probably to say that aspect of, did our bands fade out? Did we get out of town?
No, the Kenyan musicians did not get out of town. They had ways of playing more genres than the Congolese, who stuck to Rumba. So the Kenyan musicians definitely survived. Some of them also moved out of the main clubs. Remember that time, the main clubs were like the Starlight Club along Valley Road.
Yes.
There was the Alliance along Tomboya Street.
Yes.
There was Pakin, Uhuru Park.
Yes.
There was Garden Square along City Hall.
And the City Hall.
So most of the great clubs, unfortunately, were taken by the Congolese. So the Kenyans had to go to hotels, like the Intercontinental, the Hilton.
There is now
to play grill
music.
music.
Grill music. Yes. It's called grill music.
Places like Sombrero,
Yeah.
they had the strippers and this hotel,
the
dinner
hotels,
music.
The Florida,
then
Madhouse on Koinange Street.
Was that sustaining enough? Did it really cover the gap that was created by the Congolese? That moving into hotels and exclusive, say, events.
No, it did not help, because now the jobs were like kind of cut off. There were less jobs playing in hotels than in clubs. There were so many clubs in River Road to start with. We had Small World, Rwadia, Kongoni, Bamboo, Kaka, and all of them had bands. We used to walk from Starlight, Starlight, walk and go listen to different bands all the way down to OTC. And you can imagine how many Kenyan bands were there.
I remember a great band was like Super Mambo.
Super Mambo.
Super Mambo.
Yeah.
on
Nairobi
Park Road.
Matata.
Yes.
Nairobi Matata.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. All the way
Kilonzo.
to Ngara. Brilliant club.
Brilliant club.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what
brilliant.
Super Mambo
All
was.
those clubs had
Actually,
bands.
Super Mambo is what I think became Nairobi Matata.
Nairobi
that's
Matata.
It was the same
yeah,
band.
it's the same
Oh, the same band. Oh, yeah, okay. On Park Road.
Yeah.
The
Park Road, yeah.
Park Road, the Brilliant was on the other side.
On the
Okay,
other side.
To play us out is Mapenzi ya Peremende by Baba Gaston, performed by Orchestra Mangelepa. I was your host, Topi Liambila.
Toka mama, oh yeah, niko wako, oh yeah, usinyate, oh yeah, waza vema, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama, mapenzi ya pipi na boyo, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama, mapenzi ya shule na boyo, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama, oh yeah, toka mama, oh yeah, usinyache, oh yeah, niko wako, oh yeah, waza vema, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama, mapenzi ya shule na boyo, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama, utakosa pembe utakula nini, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama. Itafanya nini mpenzi wangu, tafanya nini mpenzi wangu, nikupe nini ukubali, mwana mama, oh yeah, toka mama, oh yeah, niko wako, oh yeah, usinyache, oh yeah, waza vema, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama, mapenzi kizunguzungu yoyo, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama, mapenzi ya shule na boyo, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe, toka mama. mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe toto mama, mapendo kizunguzungu mama, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe toto mama, utakosa yote utapata bure, mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe toto mama, mama mapendo kizunguzungu tuwe toto mama.
The journey through Shades of Benga continues. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms for the next episodes. Shades of Benga, the book, is available in all leading bookstores in Kenya. Get your copy for this and other stories in full.
Mambo vipi?